fact, I'm not even sure that this American concept of retirement is biblical. But that's another sermon. I want to be your friend today. Jesus ascended to heaven in order that he could do his best work from his perch of power, giving us power now, in the midst of all that we go through, giving us power to fuse the facts, synthesize the data, and to make sense of that which is beyond all human understanding. Close your eyes, Luther says, and let go, and trust God. I mean, there are some things that should be logical, like mathematical theorems and train schedules. I took one, it was right on time, 1:11 on Penn Station out here. U.S. foreign policy, computer technology, church bulletins and their making, insurance company actuarial tables. Those should be logical things, but don't confuse those things with the things that are theological, like God, who through, before, above, beyond, in, with, and under, all that other stuff, dwells in inapproachable light. Having a mind for what really matters means understanding that faith is the evidence of things not seen. We walk by faith and not by sight. Faith means clinging for dear life sometimes to the promises of God, the presence of God, the power of God when you don't have any of your own. Now, in my classroom, you will be evaluated on the logic or the illogic of your work. But in this church, that's not what brings us together. This is theological. We cannot possibly have a test to get in here because none of us would pass. We cannot possibly wrap our minds around the mystery of this God and who this God is. I love the way the writer Psalm 8 puts it. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have spangled like sequins against the black onyx sky. What are human beings that you are mindful of us? Mere mortals, that you should care for us. You who created marvelous starfish and simple sea urchins, made by the same creator who composed a symphony of complex galaxies. I just read this. Do you know how many galaxies there are in our universe that are observable from planet Earth? So the Milky Way is a galaxy. Anyone want to guess? Not you who are listening at 8 o'clock and appear to be listening again. How many galaxies? Just a guess. Anyone? Who knows? Millions? That's right. Millions. So many millions that it's billions. In fact, it's 170 billion galaxies observable from planet Earth. Now, some of these galaxies, check this out, some of these galaxies have within them stars that number, so the sun is our star, stars that number 10 trillion. 10 with 14 zeros. 170 billion galaxies. Some with stars that are 10 trillion large. And yet this God shows up in our neighborhood, shows up on our altar, shows up in this pulpit, Sunday in and Sunday, shows up in your life, suffering, dying, experiencing everything that we experience, and more. The recently deceased poet, Maya Angelou, in her recitation at President Bill Clinton's inaugural, January 20th, 1993, said these words. They are reminiscent and they echo with themes from Psalm 8. And she addresses them to all of us. She says, you, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long, face down in ignorance. We've seen those who are crouching, those who are living beneath their God-given dignity. Those who are living in places and experiences of poverty and marginalization. I was in India 2 years ago and had a chance to visit a community of Dalit women, formerly the untouchables, people who are considered like human waste, the refuse of human communities, untouchable people. And these women, with a very small loan, were able to purchase a laptop computer. But since they wanted to learn how to read and write, and they wanted to learn numeracy, which is how numbers work, so they could start their own business. But these women were living in a community where there was no electricity. So in order to get the laptop to work, they had to hook the laptop up to a generator that was powered by a tractor. And they proceeded to teach themselves and work themselves out of poverty. The human mind is ingenious. What's beyond understanding is the height and the depth and the width and the love of God that would motivate some people to care about other people who they don't even know who are halfway around the world. So part of the reason I'm here today is to thank you, St. John's Church, for your support of organizations like Lutheran World Relief, and to thank you for the St. John's Visiting Professorship, which gave me the opportunity this semester to think and teach and write and talk about the fact that this God cares about everyone. No one is outside of God's categories or boxes of love. A second tragedy that I want to bring to your attention is ongoing right now. In fact, pastors, you can include this in your prayers. In the newly formed nation, the most recently formed nation on the continent of Africa, called South Sudan, 12 million people living there. And yet 1.3 million of that 12 million, 10% of the population, has been driven by violence and warfare from their homes, from the places where they live. And young children are eating tree leaves in order to try to stay alive. And so that place also needs our support and our prayer, because there are no disposable people. And we're called to be witnesses to that fact. And as witnesses of that fact, we are called to act in the name of Jesus and to have a mind for what really matters. Not this other trivial small stuff that we so often get ourselves preoccupied with.